Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For today's tutorial, I'm going to do something a little bit different. How I structure this program, or how I plan on delivering this series of C++ tutorials, is when you finish the video or when you finish one of the series, you should be able to have a functioning application that you can put on your resume or on your GitHub page. So for this tutorial, I'm going to use Visual Studio. If you do not have Visual Studio, so if you're working on a Mac and you do not have Visual Studio, you can use a Visual Studio Code. If you do not want to save your projects on your computer, you can use REPL IT or REPL It. REPL It or REPL IT is actually a very good online tool you can use to write any programming language. You can write Python, web, C, C++, Java, any type of programming languages that you want to write and you don't want to save it on the computer, you can use REPL IT. So for this tutorial, I'm going to use Visual Studio. So I'm going to go ahead and look for Visual Studio. So now that I have Visual Studio open on my computer, go ahead and click on Create New Project. And once that is opened up, you want to click on Empty Project. You want an empty C++ project. If you don't have empty project listed here or listed at the top, you can scroll down, or you can just simply put it in the search box and look for empty project. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Empty Project, C++ Window and Console. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. So for your project, you have to give your project a name. We are going to build a bank application. So I'm going to go ahead and call my application Bank App. Leave these settings as is and click on Create. Now that our bank app project is open, I'm just going to go over briefly about the IDE. I'm not going to get so in depth with the tutorial of Visual Studio. I'm just going to give you a brief run through so you can get around your projects freely. So on my right, you have the Solution Explorer, and the Solution Explorer holds your files for your projects. So for today's tutorial, we're just going to work with source file, but as the series progresses, we're going to get more into header files and resource files and stuff like that. So for now, we're just going to work with our source file. Now, if you look on top, you have your file, your edit, your Git. You can upload your project straight to GitHub if you want to. And then we have our build, debug, analyze, and different tools above. Now, what we're going to use a lot throughout this series, we're going to use the local window debugger. We're going to debug some of the errors that we're getting in our code, and that's something that I really enjoy doing. Sometimes it's good to purposely put errors in your code and debug it and get familiarized with certain errors. Let's bring back our attention to the right, and you want to click on source file. So you can see now we don't have any type of files in our project. So right now we want to create a file in our project to write our code. So you want to go on the source file, right click on add, or hover over the add option, and then you want to go to new item. So when I click on new item, it should bring up a box for me to choose further options. The type of file that we want to write our code in is a .cpp file. So we're going to choose C++ file. You can see you have different files that you can create for your project. So we are going to use these options, but just not in the beginning, just later on in the series. So go ahead and click on C++ file, and at the bottom where it says name, you want to give your file a name. So I'm going to call my file main.cpp. Now it's very important that you give your file a .cpp extension. So just like how you have a .pdf, just like how you have for Python, you have .py. For C, you have .c, HTML, you have .html, and so forth. For C++, the extension must be .cpp. Why? Because the computer have to tell the compiler how to process your file. So for the computer or for the compiler to process that file properly, you have to give it the correct extension. And for C++, the correct extension is .cpp. Now you can name your file whatever you want to name your file, but I always name the file that I'm going to run all of my functions or all of my code that I want the user to interact with or see on the console. I would call it main.cpp, and I'm going to go ahead and click on add, and it should show up under the source folder. Now if we had created a header file, it will show up under the header files folder. Going over to the IDE itself, or the place where you're going to write the code, if you look on my left, you would see there is a number 1 there, and that is very important. That tells you, for example, if you have any errors in your code, it will tell you right away which line is giving an error. Now when you are creating any type of programs or application using C++ and you want to print some type of message to the screen, or you want users to interact with your applications or put some type of data in your application or program, you must use the header file called IOStream. To include a header file in your program, or to include the IOStream header file in your program, you use #include and the name of the header file. Now I'm going to use the anchor brackets, and the anchor brackets just simply means that the type of file is standard to C++, or that file comes with the C++ program. If you look on the screen, you would see a list of header files that comes with the C++ library. Now pay close attention to the extension of the header files. All of the header files end with .h extension, and we're going to use header files a lot. We're going to create our own header files in later series. We're also going to use, when we get to STL libraries like vectors and arrays, templates, we are going to include a lot of those header files. So for now, we just want to include the IOStream header file. So if you want to print to the screen, or if you want to get user to input some type of value or data to your application, you have to use the IOStream header file. Let me go back a bit and just explain a little bit about the #include. So the #include or the #include is called a preprocessor directive. So anything in C++ that begins with the hash, it's called a preprocessor. So pre meaning before, and process means to make something of. So basically what the #include is saying is, before you compile the code, or before you compile all of my code inside of main that I'm going to write, go and look for the header file IOStream and bring it in my .cpp file or in my program before you compile the file. Now if you created your own header file and you put it inside of the header file folder, then instead of using the anchor brackets, you would use the double quotes. It will look something like this, and the double quotes just means that the header file is written, or it's in the Solution Explorer or in our project. I'm going to go back and put IOStream inside of the anchor bracket to get rid of the error. So we're building a banking application, and when you're building any type of application or any type of programs, the first thing that you have to think about is, what type of data am I expecting inside of my application or inside of my program? And to accept proper data in your application, you must use the proper data type. So different data types in C, we have double, we have floats, we have integers, we have strings, we have booleans, which is true or false. You have user defined data types, which we are going to create, and those data types come from objects or objects data type classes. So I'm going to declare a variable called name, and the data type for this variable will be a string, and I'm going to assign my string to an empty string. Now I'm going to explain this line of code before I move on. If you look under the string data type, you would see there's an error. There's a red squiggly line. In C++, whenever you see this red line, you know that that's an error. So if I go ahead and I write double, you would see that the double is in blue instead of white. And in order for you to get rid of that line, you would have to use the standard library, because that's where the string function is defined. So you can use std and 2 colons, and it will get rid of the error. So to go over the code, at line number 3, we declared a variable called name, and we declare it with the string data type. Now in C++ or any programming language, think of a variable as a container that holds some type of value. If we're going to put or give the user some type of name, for example, we can say Nikki. The name Nikki will be assigned to the name variable. If I go ahead and I print the name variable, then it will print Nikki. For now, I want to leave this variable empty. When you're declaring or when you're writing any type of statement, if you notice after the double quotes, I have a semicolon, and a semicolon, that's syntax in C++, and it's very important. The semicolon means I am finished writing my statement on this particular line. So now go to the next line. So when the compiler sees the semicolon, it's going to stop, and then it's going to go on the next line. So for our application, we still have to come up with some more variables to hold some type of values in our program. So as I said before, we're building a banking application, and when you're building a banking application, I know most of you guys probably have a bank account, and within that bank account, you probably have a checking or a savings account. So we're going to put both of them in our application. We're going to put a check-ins account. So I'm going to say double and check-ins. And we're going to assign our check-ins account to 200. So at line number 4, I declared another variable called check-ins, and I declared it with a double data type, and the check-in variable holds the value 200. So when you see the equal sign in C++, it means whatever is on the right, put it in whatever is on the left. So take $200 and put it in the check-ins variable. So we have our check-in variable, which will hold the data or the balance for the checking account. And we also probably need a savings account. So we want another double, and we're going to call this variable savings. And we're going to assign savings to 0. Maybe we'll need a variable for deposit. If the user want to deposit some type of money into their account, we need a variable to hold the amount that the user have deposited. So we also need a double as well, and we're going to call it deposit, and we're going to set the deposit to 0 as well. And the last thing we probably would need in our application is an option. So we're going to say we're going to use the int data type, and we're going to call a variable option, and we're going to assign it to 0 as well. So let's go back and take a look at our data types and variable. So just to go over quickly, the data type specifies the type of data that the variable can hold. So for example, if you declare a variable as double and you assign strings, that can cause problems. So if I go ahead and I put double quotes around that, I should get an error. And the error is saying a value of type construct cannot be used to initialize an entity of type double. So double quotes are classified as strings in C++. Now, before I move on, one thing that I want to make very clear, when you are giving your variables any type of name, it's very important that you give it meaningful names. For example, instead of putting double number 1, double number 2, specify what that variable should be holding. For example, if you have a program and you want to store someone's age, instead of saying number, use the variable age, or use the variable mom's age, dad's age. So for applications, we need to store the balance in the checking account, the balance in the savings account. So we need to give it meaningful names. So I could have said checking account balance, or checking account underscore balance, savings account underscore balance, or savings underscore balance. That way, whoever is reading the code can know what type of values are expected to store in that specific variable. In C++ or all of the other programming languages, anything that you want to display to the console must be written inside of the main function. And to write the main function, I'm going to use the data type int as the return value. And don't worry, we're going to get a little bit deeper into it as we progress. So for now, just you must write int main, and then you have the open and closing curly brackets. So anything that is written above main or below main will not get executed. So for our program, when you go to the bank, you would see some type of welcome message. So let's print a welcome message or a hello message in our application once it loads up. So to do that, we're going to use cout less than. And right when we used cout keyword, we have an error. And to remove the error, we can say std : and you see that it removed the error for us. If you want to bypass using std all the time, because we are going to print a bunch of different messages to the screen, and you don't always want to use std : so what we can do, or what you can do, you can say using namespace std. And once we using namespace std, you can go ahead and remove std from the string and cout, and now you can see that we can use it freely with no error. So namespace std, or namespace, is just a scope. You declare it in a different file or in a header file, and you can just bring it in your .cpp file. We are going to create our own namespace later on in the series, but for now, just know that namespace holds the objects for the cin, the cout, and also for our string library. So namespace is just a scope that provides access to the functions and the data that is in the iostream header file. So this header file right here. So keep namespace in mind. We will get back to namespace later on in our program. So let's go back to writing or displaying messages in our application. We are using the less than symbol, and this is called an operator, and the less than symbol is the insertion operator. And what it's going to do, it's going to take whatever we want to get printed and input it into the cout object. So we're going to say inside of double quotes, because when you write in any type of strings that you want to output to the screen, you have to put it inside of the double quotes. So just like the print function where you put inside of the double quotes if you wanted to print, the cout is just like the print function. So inside of the double quotes, we're going to say hello. Maybe let's say welcome user. Please enter your name. So let's build a program. So you're going to go under the build option and click on build solution. And if we have any errors, if you look at the bottom, it will tell you that we're having some type of error. And you can see here it says the build 1 succeed. So 0 fail, 1 succeed. Now we know that our program runs properly. If we look at the bottom here, you would see values: 1 succeed, 0 fail, 0 update, 0 skip. Most of the time in the bottom of main, just before the last closing braces, you would see the return statement, return 0. So it will return a value which is an integer. If the program runs clean, it will return 0, or else it will return 1 if it doesn't. So let's go ahead and run the program. And if we run the code, we would see the message, welcome, please enter your name. So we have our cout statement printed to the terminal for us. So this is exactly what we want in our program. So let's go ahead and write some more code. Now we want the user to enter the name in our application. Most of the time when you create an account, the account will have the name on it and it will print your name, and we're going to get into that later on. But right now I just want to go over the concept, how things are built using C++. We want the user to enter their name in our program. To get the user to enter their name in your program, you have to use the cin object. So we can just say cin, and instead of using the less than operator, or it is called the insertion operator, we're going to use the extraction operator or the greater than operator. And whatever the user typed on the keyboard, or whatever name the user put in the program, we want to store the data in the name variable. So if we look here at line number 5, we have declared a variable called name. So what we're going to do, we're going to say cin, and we want to store name. Let's print back out to the screen. So we're going to say cout, and let's say hello. We want to print the name that the user just entered. And then we're going to say \n. \n in C++ means when you get to this line and you meet \n, go to a new line. So for now, we're just going to print the name to the screen for the user. So I'm going to go ahead and build my program. So I'm going to run it. So we have our message popped up in our program. Welcome, please enter your name. So I'm going to put in my name, Nikki, and I'm going to hit enter, and it says hello, Nikki. So far we're good for our banking application. Maybe we want the user to probably choose some type of option. Do you want to see your account balance? Do you want to deposit? Do you want to withdraw? Let's ask the user what do they want to do with their account. So I'm going to say cout, and probably I say choose one of the following option, and I'm going to end the line. Now you haven't seen endl before, and endl is also an object that is defined in the standard library. Endl means end line, Once the compiler meets the end else statement, it knows that there's no more code after that. So go to the next line and execute the next set of code. What I like to do in my program, I like to write comments in my program, and comments will let me know exactly what a specific line of code is doing. Even if you know what the line is doing, you know what you're doing in your program, it's also good to write comments for, let's say, for example, anybody else who's reading your code. They can know exactly what this specific line of code is doing. And to write a comment in C++, you use the /. So you do 2 / and you can write anything you want. So I can say this line is printing the username. So whatever comment that you write in your code will not get compiled. It's just notes you're putting in your code for yourself or anybody who's using your program. If you write the comment properly, it will turn green. So if I remove the /, the color changes. If I put back the /, it turns green. So this is called a single line comment. If you want to comment, for example, a whole block of code, you can use a block comment, and a block comment in C++ is like this. So /*, and you see everything here turns green, and where you want to finish the comment, you can say */. So this block of code will not run because you commented off. So this is how you comment multi-line of code or multiple lines of code using the /* and */ to end it off. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the comment, and we're going to go ahead and keep writing our code. So we have we print the message to the screen. Choose one of the following options. So we also need another cout statement, and this time we're going to create a menu for the user to choose from. 1, check balance, and L cout. 2, deposit. We're going to end the line here. Option number 3 would be withdraw. Now we're going to use our option variable. Let's give the user a note for option. Here we're going to take in the option from the user. So we're going to say cin option. And remember, option is our variable we declared at line number 9. So let's go ahead and build our program. Everything was successful. So let's go ahead and run our program. And I'm going to enter my name. I hit enter, and our menu show up for us. There's a typo here, and let's say I'm choose option number 1, and our program ended. So let me go here and remove this. Let's make our program look a little bit better. So we're going to create some spaces in our program. Let's also put a \n here as well, and maybe we want a \n right here as well. Let's go back and build our program again, and let's run it. Go ahead and type in the key, and there you see our program is looking a little bit better now. We have some spaces in between. So 1 for deposit. Let's put a little bit of space here for withdraw. So we're going to put a space, and we're going to make this capital. So our program is looking good. So let's move on. So when the user chooses an option, you want something to happen. And in C++, that is called control flow. So the control flow is using logics like, if this happened, then do this, or if that happened, then do that. Okay, so if the user choose 1, or if the option is 1, then you want a block of code to execute. If the option is 2, then you want a different block of code to execute. And if the option is 3, you want another block of code or a different block of code to execute. So that's the if else logic in C++ or most of the programming languages. So let's do the logic for our application. As I said before, logics in C++ is called the control flow. It tells the program what to do. It controls the program based on the user interaction. So let's say, for example, if the user press 1 is to check the balance in the account. So we're going to say if, open and closing brackets, and we want to check what value the user have entered in our program, and we took the value from the user at line 23. So we're going to say if the user entered 1, so if the option variable have the data 1 or the value 1, then we want something to happen. So we're going to put curly brackets. So you think about it logically, and this is the part that I like about C++ when you have to think about what your program is going to do. When you go to a bank and you press, I want to see the balance, you probably have a checkings account, you probably have a savings account, you probably have a mortgage, you probably have car payment, car loans. You want to see the balance of what? They cannot just show you a balance. So for a program, we don't have any mortgages or car note. We just have a checkings account and a savings account. So we have to ask the user, you want to check the balance for which account? Is it for the checkings account? Is it for the savings account? So let's go back and ask the user to input more information in our program. That way we can display the correct information on the screen. So we're going to ask the user to choose an account, and let's end the line here, and let's do another cout statement. We're going to give them options. So we're going to say 1 for check-in, end line, or 2 for savings. We're going to end the line, and then we're also going to just print a little statement for the user so the user knows where to put their option or where to input their option. So we're going to say option, and you notice here I'm not putting end line or end L after the option because I want the user to enter or input their option on the same line where it says option. And in the bottom, I just going to use the C in so the user can input their option. So I'm going to say option. So I'm using the variable option, and I also have another variable option at the top as well, which I don't want the compiler to get confused. So what I'm going to do, inside of the if statement, I'm going to declare another variable called option. So the option that I declared at line 25, that option is reserved for what's inside of the if bracket. That is called variable scope. So a variable scope is if you declare the variable inside of a certain bracket. So for example, I declared this variable inside of this if statement. The variable is only visible inside of this bracket. I cannot use it anywhere outside of this if statement. So in C++, this is called a variable scope. So where this variable is visible. So this variable, as I said before, is only visible inside of this bracket. So this option variable is different from this option variable. This option variable is a global variable. You can use this option variable anywhere in the program, right? It's called a global variable. But this option variable is called a scope variable. It's only visible and usable inside of this curly brackets, right? If the user input 1 in the program, we want to display the check-ins account. So let's go here, and we're going to give some type of condition. So we're going to say if option equals to 1. So to go back a little bit more in the code, At line 24, I'm using the double equal sign, and at line 25, I'm using the single equal sign. Even when I go back up to my data types or my variables that I declared, I'm using the single equal sign. The single equal sign means a sign which I explained in the beginning. The double equal sign means equal to. So don't get the two of them mixed up. The single equal sign means to take whatever data that is on the right and put it in the variable that's on the left. So what's going to happen is the data 0 is going to store in option variable, right? Now for the option that is global, which we declared here, right now it stores the variable 0 because the user haven't entered anything as yet. Now in the if statement, what this is doing inside of the if statement, it's checking to see if what the user input equals to 1. So if the user pressed 1 on the keyboard, that means that the user want to check their balance. In the if statement, this option right here stores the variable 1, and it's comparing, is 1 inside of this variable? Yes, it's true. So if it's true, then execute this block of code. If it's not true, so let's say the user entered 2 now is going to be stored in this variable. It's 1 equals to 2. No, that's going to be false. So that's when we're going to come down here in the bottom here and write our else statement, which we're going to get into shortly. So let's just finish the code for the user to see their balance in their account. If user enter 1, then we want to see out, and let's give a little note. So let's say the balance in your checking account is, and now we want to print the balance in the checking account. So we're going to use the checking variable, right? And then here we're going to say if option equals 2, and we can just print the balance in your savings is, we want to print what's in the savings. Let's do end line here, and let's also do end L here as well. Now if you look at my if statement, you can see that we have no open and closing curly brackets. In C++, if you have an if statement and you're only writing one single statement under the if statement, you don't need the open and closing curly brackets. But if you're writing multiple statements under the if statement, like if you're going to put a next cout statement under this cout statement, then you would need the open and closing curly brackets. But if you only put in one, then you don't need it. Right? So let's go ahead and build our program. So now let's go ahead and put in some data. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my name. And now we said, hello, Nikki, what I want to do today. So I want to check my balance, and now it comes back and it tell me choose account. So which account did I want to check the balance for? So if I come here, let's go back here, and in my checkings account I have $200. So let's go ahead and check the balance for my checking account. So I'm going to say 1. I want to check what's in my checking account, and it says my checking account have $200. So this is good. Let's put the $sign here, and let's also put the $sign here as well. So our checking account have $200. Let's put $23 in our savings account. So let's go ahead and build this again. Let's go ahead and run it, and let's put Nikki. Hello, Nikki, what you want to do today? And I want to check my balance. And this time, let's check for our savings. which is 2 because we just put $23 in our savings account. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit 2, and it should say the balance in my savings account is $23. So our first logic worked. So let's close this and let's move on to our second logic, which is deposit money in our account. So let's say the user want to deposit money in their account. We have to go outside of this if statement, because if you look, this is the if statement if the user enter 1. So now what happens if the user want to enter 2? So we're going to come out of the if statement, and then we can use else if. So you can either say else if, or you can also use if you prefer. For conventional reasons, it's best practice to use else if. However, you can also use if, just if by itself, and for the last statement you can say else. So we can say if the user enter 1, do this. Or if the option is 2, then we want to execute a specific block of code. Let's go ahead and write the logic for the if statement if the user enters 2. We're going to print a cout statement, and just as we did here for the option, we're going to create another variable called option as well. So we're going to say int option, and this option is visible only to this if block of code, or only to this if statement. Then we're going to print, let's say, choose the account to make deposit, and then we're just going to end the line. Then we're going to create our little menu. So we're going to say 1 for check-ins, line. Here we're going to also do 2 for savings, and then we're going to end the line. And then we're going to print option, so the user knows where to enter the option. So we're going to say option, and we're just going to give a semicolon because we want the user to enter the option right next to the option statement. And then we're going to take in the option from the user. So now that we have all of this message printed to the screen, we have to go back and build a next if logic inside our if logic. So that is called nested if statement in C++. So when you have a bunch of if logic inside of a bigger if logic, so if I go back here, I have a if statement here, right? So this is my big if statement, and inside of that if statement I have other if statements, and that is called nested if statement. So I'm going to go here and say if option equals to 1. I'm going to write multiple statements inside of that if statement, so I need to put all of those statements inside of the open and closing curly brackets. So I'm going to cout enter deposit amount. I'm going to take in the deposit. Now remember, this deposit that's going to store the money that the user have entered in the account is declared at line number 8. So we're going to use that variable deposit. So I'm going to go back down, and when the user enter their deposit, the money that they want to deposit in their account, we need to update the check-ins deposit. So we need to update this because now this is 200. We need to update it. So what we need to do, we need to add what's the current balance right now for the check-ins account, and we need to add it to what the user has deposited into the account. So the logic for that will be the check-ins account now. So once the user entered their deposit, the check-ins account will be check-ins now is going to equals to what is currently in the checking account. So what's in the current checking account right now would be 200 plus what the user has deposited. So that's going to be the logic now for giving you a total for the check-ins accounts. Maybe we want to print something to the screen and give them their updated balance. So we're going to say see out your new checking balance is, and then we want to use the check-in variable, right? Because the check-in variable now is going to be updated with the new balance. Okay, now we're going to write a next logic. So if the user press savings, so we're going to say, so if option now equals to 2, then we do the same thing, right? We're going to tell them enter the amount they want to deposit in their savings account. I'm going to say enter deposit amount. All right, and now I'm going to take in the deposit amount. Now I want to update my savings balance. So now I'm going to say the savings now going to equals to what's in the savings right now, which is I think $23. Yes, so the savings right now have $23. So we're going to say $23 plus what the user just deposited. Let's bring this on another line to make it more readable. So now I'm going to print the new savings balance, right? So I'm going to say your new savings balance is $, and now I want to use the savings variable. So let's see how our account is going so far. All right, so let's build, and now let's run our program. Okay, so I'm going to enter my name, and now I want to deposit money in my account. So I'm going to choose option 2, and I want to deposit money in my savings account. So I'm going to put 2, and then this asking me enter the deposit amount. So currently I have $23 in my savings account. So if I scroll back up here, you should see my savings account have $23. So I'm going to say add $100 to my savings account, and now my new balance for the savings account is $123 because I currently have $23. So far our program is working exactly how we want it to work. So let's go ahead and implement the last thing, and the last code that we have to implement is to withdraw. What happens if the customer want to take money from their account? So let's go back down to the bottom, and right under this here we're going to use another if statement. So we're going to say if the option this time is equals to 3, and which means the user wants to withdraw. I'm going to create a variable called amount, so it's going to be a double, and then I'm going to declare another variable option, which is going to be of integer, and then I'm going to do a cout statement. So I'm going to say in my cout statement, choose the account you want to withdraw from, and I'm going to end my line, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same logic. So cout 1 for check-in, and here we're going to say 2 for savings, and now we're going to take in the value from the user. But before we do that, actually let's do like what we did at top. let's just give them an area where to enter the option. So we say option, and it should look like this. If option equals 1, which is for the check-ins, we need curly braces for this because we're going to write multiple statements. So we're going to just write a quick cout statement and ask them to enter the amount they want to withdraw. So we're going to say enter withdraw amount. And then we're going to see in amount. And the logic here now, if they're withdrawing from the check-ins, we want to update the check-in balance. So we're going to say check-in now is going to equals to what's in the current balance to check-in minus the withdraw amount. And then we're just going to write another statement, and this statement will say your updated checking account is, and we're going to give them the checking account balance. Now if they want to withdraw from the savings, so if option equals 2, then we can say cout enter withdraw amount. Now we're going to take in the amount, and then we want to update the savings. So savings now is going to equals to savings plus amount, and then we're going to print to the user the updated balance for the savings account. So your updated balance in savings account is, and we're going to use the savings. Let's also change this to your updated balance as well. This is the logic for the withdraw amount. So the withdraw and the deposit is almost the same thing, but for the deposit we're going to add, for the withdraw we're going to subtract. So let's build our program, make sure there is no errors. So everything is successful. Now let's run our program and let's enter the name. I want to withdraw. Choose the account you want to withdraw from. So I want to withdraw from my check-ins account. Enter the withdraw amount. I want to withdraw 150 from my check-ins account because right now I have 200. If you can see, I have 200 in my check-ins. So I want to withdraw 150. So my balance now should be $50. So if I go ahead and hit enter, you should see here your updated balance in check-ins account is $50. So that's the logic for writing C++ code. Now, is this perfect? No, we can do a lot more with this program. For example, I'm going to run the program one more time. I'm going to enter the name. And if I want to check my balance, for example, I say option 1, it gives me this. Now the program end. You do not want the program to end. You want the program to keep going, have the user enter different input. So for example, I want to check my balance and I also want to do a withdraw based on how much I see in my account, right? So that means I have to end the program and run the program again. So you want the program to keep going, and I can give you a hint right now. The hint is using a while loop. So that's one enhancement you can do to your program. Another enhancement you can do, you can also create another logic where if the balance in the account is less than what the user wants to withdraw. So for example, the user have $200 in their checkings account, and how about if they want to withdraw $250? You have to write some type of logic to let the user know you cannot withdraw, or you have exceeded the withdraw amount. Please choose a lower value. So that's another way you can enhance this program. In the next series, we are going to go a little bit deeper. Now, the whole point of C++ is to encapsulate stuff, or to hide stuff from the user or from anybody who's reading the code, basically. And that's by creating class. Now, we wrote our code in the main function, which is not the safest thing to do. So in the next series, we're going to delete all of those code and maybe create some functions and create header files and hide all those logics in a header file by using classes. And then we're going to create objects where we're going to get the exact same results, the exact same things. However, we're going to put all of those logics in functions, in a header file, in classes, and we're going to create objects that can do all of that for us. So in the next series, we're going to update this code. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did learn something from this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, and the comments and subscription keeps me going. I see you guys in the next tutorial.